Between the Tides and Ecology, unpacking marine niche and species interactions. The focus of this video is marine ecosystems, more specifically the intertidal zone. The intertidal zone is a marine ecosystem on shorelines where ecosystems can adapt to shifting conditions of high and low tides. Let's take a look at this. The first zone is the lower intertidal zone, which is usually covered in water. Then we have the middle intertidal zone, followed by the upper intertidal zone, and the zone that is mainly dry most of the time. In this video, we are going to use the intertidal zone to explore important concepts in ecology. An important concept in ecology is fundamental versus realized niche. But first, what is niche? The niche is the variety of conditions where a species can live and reproduce successfully and maintain a population. Fundamental niche is the full range of environmental conditions a species can survive and grow in, where its population can increase on its own without being limited by predators, competitors, or parasites. The realized niche, on the other hand, is the range of conditions a species actually lives in, after accounting for limits caused by things like competition, predation, or parasitism. The realized niche is usually smaller than the fundamental niche. The ecological processes shaping fundamental and realized niche are natural selection and competition. Natural selection may favor traits that help a species better use specific resources or survive in certain conditions, which shapes its fundamental niche, and competition. Two species in the same habitat using the same resources are going to compete for those resources. If one species uses part of the resource, it becomes unavailable to the other. This is where a competitive exclusion principle comes in. It states that when two species compete for the same resources, one usually outcompetes the other, forcing the weaker species to adapt to find a new strategy. Now that we've gone over these key definitions and concepts, let's dive deeper and look at a real example using the well-known barnacle case. There are two types of barnacles. One barnacle is a chalamus, and another barnacle is a balanus. Chalamus are found in the upper part of the intertidal zone, where it's dry most of the time. The higher you go, the drier it is. However, it does occasionally get wet. Researchers notice this and ask the question, is the chalamus fundamental or a realized niche? Does balanus, the other barnacle, outcompete it and restrict the chalamus to only the upper intertidal zone? Or is there something about the lower zones that make it hard for the chalamus to survive there? Done in the west coast of Scotland Bank in the 1950s, barnacles were removed using hammers and chiseled. The researchers removed the balanus, the competitor, and observed whether chalamus could survive down in the intertidal zone. Researchers found that the chalamus could survive in the middle intertidal zone if balanus were removed. When balanus were present, chalamus can compete and fails to thrive. Therefore, they choose the upper intertidal zone to live. This shows that the balanus is outcompeting the chalamus in the lower part of the intertidal zone, limiting its niche. Therefore, the realized niche of the chalamus is the upper intertidal, where it can live given that the balanus excludes it from the lower areas. Chalamus's fundamental niche would include both the upper and middle intertidal zones, where it could thrive without competition. This experiment highlights the difference between the fundamental niche, where the chalamus could live without any competition, and the realized niche, where it actually occupies space due to competition, where it can survive better due to its ability to handle drying out more effectively than the balanus. Now, as we're exploring competition in ecosystems, it's important to consider how different cultures may interpret these interactions. For instance, the Noga people of Panama often view species relationships, for example, between coyotes and badgers, as cooperative, whereas Western perspectives tend to see them as competition. This difference stems from a broader worldview. Indigenous cultures, like the Nobagi, see humans as part of nature and emphasize interconnectedness. They believe that all species play a role in ecosystems and that cooperativeness, rather than competition, is at the central of these relationships. This is very different from Western ecology, which focuses more on survival-driven competitions. When we recognize indigenous knowledge, we can expand our ecological understanding. It reminds us that species interactions can be cooperative and that animals may have some form of agency, a concept that challenges more individualistic, survival based interactions often found in the Western science. Integrating these perspectives provides us more with an open view of ecological processes. In the barnacle example, competition limits cathylamus to the upper intertidal zone. Western science focuses on this would be seen as a competitive interaction. However, from an indigenous perspective, like the Nobagese, emphasis, interconnectedness, and cooperation suggests that species may coexist and support ecosystem balance beyond just competition. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the unpacking of marine niche systems and species interactions.